There is no way the Edmonton Oilers actually do this following a 4-3 loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night. There's been a new article linking Matt Savoie potentially helping out the Oilers in a trade deadline move, including Savoie. Yes, blows my mind the more I think about it, but we will get into all that, and more today on Oilers Digest, as we also have some lineup news later on in the video. But if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe here to the channel. If you're part of the 18% that has subscribed to the channel, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for helping us almost reach the goal of 3,000 subscribers. But if you're part of the 81% that haven't, folks, what are you waiting for? For any and all Oiler news leading up to the Four Nations face-off and the trade deadline, lots of things to look forward to, and Oilers Digest is the place to be. But without further ado, let's get into this article. Dipping into the pool, yes, there was an article with Matt Savoie in the dilemma for the Edmonton Oilers for the trade deadline. Should he stay or should he go? Yes, following the 4-3 loss to the Leafs, the Oilers have a new question. Should Matt Savoie be traded? An article here from Brett Slauson. The 2025 NHL trade deadline is rapidly approaching, and the Edmonton Oilers have a handful of important decisions to make as they prepare for what they hope will be another long run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, of course, Matt Savoie being traded, just as stupid as it sounds, but of course, it's always an option for the Edmonton Oilers. If they get an offer, they absolutely cannot refuse. For Matt Savoie, you take it, but he should be an untouchable piece at this point in the Oilers season. Of course, Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman always trying to stock the cupboards with prospects, and I think they're trying to gain more prospects than they lose some, and losing the number one prospect in any trade that you obviously do not win would be a very fireable offense. But I mean, Stan Bowman, we know what he's been capable of with the Artemi Panarin trade to the Columbus Blue Jackets, so hold on to your seats. But when it comes to the Oilers, of course, the prospect pool below Matt Savoie, you have Sam O'Reilly with the London Knights, Bo Akey with the Barrie Colts, and of course Roby Yarventi, who's currently down in Bakersfield with the Condors there, struggling to stay healthy, but hopefully he can provide at least something when he does stay healthy. But of course, after Savoie, it gets kind of bare in there. He is second place on the scoring leaders for the Bakersfield Condors there. 12 goals, 19 assists for 31 points, only 7 behind Seth Griffith. But I mean, that's fantastic for a rookie with Matt Savoie there, almost making, an immediate impact with this team. Of course, he single-handedly making sure that Edmonton is not dead last in the 2025 NHL Prospect Pool rankings, but third last is a little bit worrisome. But he's so good that, at least the Oilers now have Matt Savoie, and of course single-handedly dragging Edmonton up from 32nd in the Prospect Pool rankings. But just looking at Matt Savoie here with the Bakersfield Condors and exactly why you do not trade him, just looking at the advanced stats between his first 20 and second 20, the splits here on his first 20, 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points, so a little over a half point per game. But even strength, the goal share 61%, but he really turned it on in his last 20 games there. 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points, so he's a point per game, and he is a 75% even strength goal share. Now that is absolutely tremendous there, and he's even the fastest skater last night at the AHL skills competition there with 13 seconds there to win the fastest skater. Not only that, folks, but he had one heck of a goal in the breakaway relay there, almost akin to like a Sam Gagner or Andrew Cogliano back when the Oilers were actually good in shootouts. You can see there that cheeky smile there from Matt Savoie. Now, of course, when it comes to trades involving top prospects, well, you're like, oh, well, why can't the Oilers go get another Ekholm type deal? You can see the Matisse Ekholm and a 2024 6th-round pick for Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, and the Oilers trading their first rounder in 2023 and the 4th rounder in last year's draft. When it comes to, Reed Schaefer, going into that 2022-23 season, he wasn't even a top 5 prospect for the Oilers. He was 9th out of, a top 10 prospect rankings. Reed Schaefer was 9th, and he still got, he was still a great piece to a guy like Matisse Ekholm. So if the Oilers, of course, even think about trading Matt Savoie, of course, I don't think they absolutely will. He's very untouchable, but he should get you, again, a superstar in the National Hockey League. Now, there are some, trade targets that the Oilers could acquire, and it's much more manageable than just trading Matt Savoie there. They could trade, more assets, picks, lower end prospects there. Of course, Reed Schaefer hasn't really done much in the AHL in the Nashville Predators farm system. They're only 21 points in 63 games last season, and not even a point per game with the Milwaukee Admirals, with 14 points in 19 games earlier this season. Now, some targets, of course, Connor Murphy from the Chicago Blackhawks. He does make, $4.4 million with the Hawks, but of course they always could retain on that contract. And Jimmy Alexiak, 32 years old, with the Seattle Kraken, 4.6. Of course, all these retainable with the with the Kraken in their retention spots, or even not a defenseman. Let's look at at a center with Trent Frederick, who could slot perfectly into the Oilers' bottom six. He's tough. He has some offensive ability. Of course, 7 goals, 7 assists for 14 points in that bottom six. And he's drawn. Of course, it says here it's drawn a lot of interest from around the league. He's hard to play against. He competes and he scores. Of course, Frederick is the perfect bottom six forward, and the Bruins have proven they can mine those guys better than any other team. Of course, the Oilers, with their draft picks, they do not have their 2025 first rounders. They did trade that to the Philadelphia Flyers, so it's not like the cupboard is bone dry, so they could make some magic with that. But of course, Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman want to replenish the prospect pool. But when it comes to worrying over Matt Savoie, Bruce Kurlock, I should say, on Twitter, the number one guy for Oiler prospects, in my mind anyway, says, many Oiler fans have PTSD over Oiler prospects. Given the last few years, I can't blame him. However, I would try and disassociate those memories from the current situation with Matt Savoie. The organization is developing Savoie exactly how you want him to be developed. And of course, that's those are fantastic words to hear. Of course, you might not see Savoie later on in the season with the Oilers. Of course, if injuries do happen, you could see him later on down the road, or even just for a cup of coffee, but you need to see him slotted into a top six spot. You can't just shoehorn that type of player into a bottom six role, because obviously nothing's really going to happen if you put a skilled player like that into the bottom six with limited numbers. But again, I don't see the Oilers trading Matt Savoie. Of course, the article, it does have, it weighs, its pros and cons. The Oilers could, go get a bona fide superstar with, a Matt Savoie package. But if they do trade him, it leaves the cupboards bone dry with, of course, no disrespect to Bo Akey or Sam O'Reilly or any of the rest of the Oilers prospect pools, but just comparing them with the rest of the NHL or even the Canadian teams, the Oilers dead last. But let me know your thoughts on Matt Savoie. I think the Oilers should keep him, and I hope you do too. But that's it for that topic. But what's next for the Edmonton Oilers? Yes, reeling 2 straight losses, although one was in a shootout to the Detroit Red Wings, so they did get 1 point at least in their last 2. But just looking ahead, before the Four Nations face-off, the Oilers do have 3 games left, one of which is against Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg in the St. Louis Blues, as they do have a back-to-back against St. Louis and then Chicago on the Wednesday night, and then they're back home for one more against Colorado. But just looking ahead to St. Louis, 7 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Mountain on Sportsnet. From Tony Barr here of Oilers TV. The Oilers keeping their top 6 the same, but shuffling the deck in the bottom 6 there, with Draisaitl, McDavid, and Perry, Arvidsson, Ryan, Nugent-Hopkins, and Zach Hyman, Jeff Skinner, Adam Henrique, and Kasperi Kapanen. Really like that line against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. So good for Knoblauch to keep that together. And then Vasily Podkolzin demoted to the bottom 6 with Janmark in Brown. I think that could be a really grindy line. Of course, the bottom 6. I'm not too mad at it. I mean, I would, break up Draisaitl in McDavid, but there's a bit of an illness going around the room, so it wouldn't surprise me if McDavid asked for Draisaitl to play right next to him. Of course, whenever, either one of them is ailing, they are put together on a line. It's always good for Knoblauch to experiment, if there are injuries that happen. You can see what he can put together and see what works. And on the back end here, Matthew Savoie, who did return to the ice following his illness, missed the Saturday night game against the Maple Leafs. He is back with Evan Bouchard, Darnell Nurse, and Troy Stecher. Brett Kulak and Ty Emberson and John Klingberg missed practice due to illness, with Skinner and Pickard tending the net. That is it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments again what you think about the Savoie situation, and what do you think about the new lineup combinations from Kris Knoblauch. Should be an interesting one to see against the St. Louis Blues tomorrow, and of course we will preview that one for you tomorrow afternoon. That is it for today's episode. Make sure you have a good start to the week, folks. It is, even though it's Monday, it's still a good day. Take care. I'm Matt.